ever had a moment where something inside you just knew, not because you had the evidence, not because it made logical sense, but because something deeper inside you said yes or no? The challenge is that the logical mind usually arrives right after and starts asking questions. Is this sensible? Is this realistic? And one of those moments led to something that I genuinely never saw coming. Welcome to Connecting to Spirit. I'm your host, Lisa Brandis. Maybe you walked into a room and instantly something felt off. Maybe you met someone for the first time and felt like you already knew them. Or maybe you had a sudden impulse to do something small and later realized that that moment changed everything. These moments are often our intuition speaking. But the interesting thing about intuition is that it usually arrives very quickly and it doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it simply appears as a feeling or a knowing or even a gentle nudge. And often it comes before the mind has even had time to analyze it. So the challenge is that the logical mind usually arrives right after and starts asking questions. Is this sensible? Is this realistic? What if something goes wrong? And if we're not careful, the mind can just simply talk us out of anything that may have been in perfect alignment for us on our spiritual path. Over the years, I've had lots of moments where intuition showed up in my life in very unexpected ways. Some of them were small, but a few of them completely changed the direction of what was happening next. And one of those moments I want to share with you today because it led to something that I genuinely never saw coming. And I'll share that story with you shortly. But first, let me give you an example of how intuition often begins. So recently I had a phone call come through from a number I didn't recognize. And usually I, like most people, wouldn't answer the call, but something inside me just said, pick it up. And I didn't let it go to voicemail. I answered the phone. I followed that intuitive impulse, and it turned out to be a man who had been referred to me so that we could discuss the possibility of running my first spiritual retreat in New Zealand. Now, the interesting thing was my first thought was actually about doubt. So my mind immediately said, I'm not prepared for the conversation. I should reschedule or organize a proper meeting. And my intuition was like, he's here. It feels right. It's hard sometimes to reschedule and find a time that suits us both. So I simply just said yes and had a casual conversation. So instead of postponing the call, we ended up having the most amazing conversation. We were just full of ideas and inspiration, and it just felt like I was talking to a long-lost friend. I didn't have any over-prepared questions. The conversation was really natural, and we both had a really strong sense of excitement about what we were going to create together. And by the way, that conversation ended up with we were probably on the phone for about an hour. And I traditionally would have spent a long time preparing for what naturally just came out in that real-time moment. So we're still in the early stages of planning my New Zealand retreat in 2027, but that single moment of intuition led to something that is now unfolding in really exciting ways, bigger than I could have imagined on my own. And it often reminded me of how that impulse and that intuition is quite simple. It was just answer the phone. I said yes to a conversation. I followed the natural energy of that natural door opening. And often these small moments take us somewhere even bigger. As you're listening today or watching on YouTube, I want you to think about how many times in your life you've had that inner nudge, that feeling that you should go do something. And before your mind starts analyzing it, because that's often your intuition speaking, really check in and feel into what the intuition is telling you. Another experience that stayed with me happened when a woman was learning Reiki with me. She enrolled into my Reiki Level 1 training, and during her attunement, something really unusual was happening. I had this overwhelming feeling that I already knew her. And I don't know, I came up with lots of reasons for why that was there, but it was just an undeniable feeling that our souls recognized each other. And later, when she spoke to me, she said she felt the exact same thing. And we both kind of had a laugh about it. And a beautiful friendship blossomed from that moment and that connection in the Reiki class. And she ended up playing an incredibly important role in my life during a massive transition. So at the time, I was working in a healing center, and that's how we met. But I had this growing feeling that it was time to open my own center. And eventually, I found the perfect place to lease. But there was one huge problem. The space needed an entire refit. And before I literally needed to have a workshop space to teach my classes and also individual rooms to do healing from. I'd never done anything like that. I'd never even had my own bricks and mortar premise. So it was huge, let alone having to organise a commercial fit out. So I shared this dilemma with her. She looked at me casually and she said, Lisa, you know that's what I do in my business. She literally worked for a building company. And her job was to fit out commercial premises. I couldn't believe it. And we'd connected more from spirituality, and I didn't really know a lot about what she did in her business. So anyway, she said, let me handle it. I didn't have to do a thing. She showed up with a team. They measured the space. They created plans. They organised and orchestrated the entire fit out process. It turned out so beautiful, better than I could have imagined. But after the work had been completed, something started to worry me. I hadn't received her invoice yet. So I'm someone that likes to pay my bills on time. So I asked her a couple of times over the phone, like, when am I going to get the invoice? And to be honest, I was a little nervous about how much it was going to be because it was a huge, big professional fit out. And anyway, we had a lunch organised. So I caught up with her, still hadn't received an invoice at that point. And then she said something to me during our lunch that I never expected. She looked me in the eye and she said, Lisa, there isn't going to be an invoice. She had decided to gift me the entire professional fit out as her way of supporting me in the beautiful work that I do. And I think I bawled my eyes out. It was such a beautiful act of generosity, and out of respect for her privacy, I'm not sharing her name or the company because she is a very private person. But what I can say is that that moment reminded me of how genuine connection can be, and also something really important. It wasn't something that I'd asked for or even something I'd tried to manifest that hadn't even crossed my mind, but it was simply the unexpected act of kindness that appeared through a genuine friendship. And moments like that often happen when we are working and in alignment with the spiritual path. So sometimes intuition works from the other side too. Another story, I had a woman inquire about one of my Reiki workshops. So I gave her a call to answer any questions she might have. And when she answered the phone, she said something very interesting. She told me that she never answers phone numbers that she doesn't know, a bit like me. And at that exact moment, she was walking her dog on the beach and something told her to pick up the phone. Now, it was such a strong intuitive impulse that she answered it, and it was me, and she was totally excited to be talking to me and ended up booking into the workshop. And after we spoke, she just said that it was certain it was the right step for her after we'd spoken, and I then told her that quite often I send out my spirit guides as messengers. And it's like my guides will talk to your guides and get us together so that we can have a conversation. So it's like a little ritual that I have that kind of empowers my message and my voice to reach the people who need me and who want to learn my very unique style of teaching. So the people that are meant to be there end up finding their way into my course. And that was a really beautiful moment, and we went on to have a great connection through all the training and the work that we've done together. So I just wanted these stories highlight that intuition sometimes shows up really in a subtle way. It's not loud, it can be clear, but it's also not often mystical. It happens all the time, so that's why it's easy to dismiss it. So the real question simply is, are you listening to it? Because the more you begin to recognize these signals, the stronger and the clearer your intuition becomes. And when you begin trusting it, life just starts opening up in ways that you would have never expected. So, if you would like to learn more about developing your intuition, connecting with higher guidance like the angels and the spirit realm, you can explore my trainings at the resources listed down in the show notes. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, I would love it if you subscribed to the podcast and shared it with someone who might need to hear this message today. So thank you for spending time with me. It is an absolute delight to share these tips and wisdom. And remember that your intuition already knows the way. And are you listening?